Taichi and Rin are regular high schoolers living in modern-day Japan. While Rin is a hardworking and diligent tennis player, Taichi isn't part of any club despite his talent for athletics. Just as Rin scolds his lazy attitude, his spirit calls out Taichi's name, but he isn't able to sense it yet. However, this makes him notice the incoming speeding bicycle, so he shields her from its path. They complain about the cycler, but more importantly, they discover a magic circle glowing beneath them. It starts following Taichi, so he quickly pushes her away so she doesn't get caught inside of it, but she runs towards him anyways, and the magic circle activates, transporting both of them into a strange place. They have been summoned into a warring fantasy world filled with monsters, spirits, mages, and different races like elves and dwarves. Taichi goes to help Rin, who lies unconscious on the ground. Wondering where they are and with no phone service to contact their family, they wander the plains hoping to stumble upon a building. Taichi finds this situation similar to the one he has seen often in mangas that he used to waste his time on and suggests that they might be in an alternate world. Rin freaks out at this situation as she is still in denial, and tells Taichi to get a life and touch some grass for once instead of reading manga all the time. While walking through the untrodden lands, they end up encountering a black horse-like beast, and they end up freezing upon sensing an incredible amount of dark energy and an evil aura coming out of it. They try to run away, but their speed is no match for the demon horse, who is easily able to catch them. Taichi decides to play the hero and tells Rin to run as fast as she can while she is distracting the beast. She tells him to stop joking around and run alongside her, but Taichi knows that if he is able to distract the horse long enough, he will at least be able to save Rin's life, even if it means certain death for himself. Taichi starts pelting stones at the horse to try and provoke him, and he succeeds when the horse changes its target and charges at Taichi with incredible speed to erase his existence. Taichi accepts his fate and gets ready to die, but fortunately, he gets saved by an adventurer who uses his wind magic to attack the horse. The horse turns around and tries to attack the first adventurer, but his teammate uses a magic arrow to shoot down the horse, ending its life. Taichi lets out a sigh of relief but is still shocked by everything that has happened in such a short amount of time. The group of adventurers introduce themselves as Megilla, Reculter, and Barada, who have been adventuring for quite a while and are regulars around this area. They explain to Taichi that the demon that they were trying to fight is called an obsidian horse, which is well known for its ferocity and obsidian horn. They explain that they came to the area to hunt one of these demon horses as according to their quest, they needed an obsidian horn, and while wandering around the area, they ended up spotting Taichi and Rin struggling with the horse. The night falls soon, and they all sit around together while talking, and the adventurers end up asking a lot of questions to Taichi and Rin because of their weird clothing and the fact that they seem to have absolutely no idea where they are. Barada explains that it's dangerous to travel unarmed and alone in an area where monster activity has been on the increase. Reculter likes the situation as it means more work and profit for their adventuring group. However, he is scolded since the situation has led to missing person reports as well as a constant attack on merchants' wagons. That evening, Taichi realizes that Rin isn't talking to him properly and realizes that she was angry at him for wanting to sacrifice himself for her, and she begs him not to do something so ridiculous ever again. She falls down crying and asks him not to leave her alone in an unknown world, so they make a promise to become inseparable no matter the situation they find themselves in. The next day, the group decides to take both of the newbies to the nearest town of Aspire, as they can't leave them alone, helpless in a demon-infested area. They arrive at the town, which is protected by a tall wall, and the adventurers give them a tour of the place. They explain that the town is an important part of the Elistane Magic Kingdom, and they also operate there since it has an adventurer's guild. They point them in the direction of the guild, but Reculter has mixed feelings about them taking on a dangerous line of work like adventuring. They explain that regardless of the danger, they like to try it out either way, and afterward they thank them for their kindness. Barada hands them a pouch of coins as a parting gift, so they both head in different directions. They arrive at the guild and are immediately welcomed by the receptionist. She asks if they both would be registering and what their race is, which makes them look around surprised and stunned, realizing that there are dwarves and other races around just like in the games. She hands them a book to read through, but the symbols look completely unreadable, but surprisingly enough they can read it regardless, and it dawns on them that they have been communicating without any trouble ever since they came into this world. Next, the receptionist explains that they have to conduct a magic aptitude test since people without magic cannot register to be adventurers. She adds that it's a simple process, and they just need to place their hands on the testing crystal. Rin goes first, and there's a brief awkward inactivity from the crystal, discouraging her. But the receptionist notices 4 different elementals and is so surprised that she asks who they are. She instructs Taichi to quickly place his hands on the crystal, and when he does, it breaks. She hastily runs inside and returns with the guild master and an A-rank adventurer who regular people rarely get the chance to meet. The guild master introduces himself as Gerard and reveals the guild won't be able to register them as adventurers. They immediately protest and ask what they did wrong, so he tells them not to panic and hands them over to an A-rank adventurer called Mara, whom they will have to follow for a while. They become hesitant since he isn't giving them much information, but he explains that they have no chance of becoming adventurers if they don't go. Mira takes them to a cottage where a woman answers the door looking carefree. She introduces herself as Limia and invites them in for a chat. Mira explains how the testing crystal at the guild broke, so Limia hands them a more crude testing device she made herself. She explains that magic capacity is the magic power a person can contain, while magic strength also varies from person to person. She goes on to activate the devices, which glow bright green in each of their arms. It displays a number that is so incredibly high that both Mira and Lamia are totally shocked. They relax, feeling glad and excited that they can finally become adventurers, but Lemia reveals that with a stat so high, they must first become her apprentices before becoming adventurers. Taichi's magic capacity is a massive 120,000, while his magic strength is 40,000. Rin has a lesser magic capacity of about 37,000 and an accompanying strength of 5,000. Even though Taichi's level is way above Rin's, Mira explains that they are both overpowered since the usual human capacity is 10,000 with a strength of 2,000. Their stats are so bizarre that they are insanely strong even when compared to Lemia, the kingdom's most elite mage, who reveals her magic level is 43,000 and 6,000. The pair is told that they have to properly master their immense power or they may end up destroying themselves with it in the long run. While Rin is disturbed by the thought of self-destruction, Taichi wants to know what awaits them after the training. Lemia tells them that by the time they finish their training, they'll be leagues above S-rank adventurers and mages and will be capable of destroying entire nations on their own. The next morning, they have breakfast while Mira explains what a magic spell is. These are techniques that can be used by providing magic powers to spirits, and without these spirits aiding them, mages cannot activate spells. She reveals that there are 4 types of spirits: fire, water, wind, and earth, and each mage has the talent for one of these elements. Rin pays attention and asks occasional questions, while Taichi is scolded for focusing on the food. She makes it clear that spirits choose the mage they serve, and this automatically determines the mage's attribute, which can be 1, a single magician, or 2, a dual magician like Mira, who can use fire and earth. There are triple magicians like herself, but there's Rin, who can use all 4 attributes. This is extremely rare and astonishing, but when Taichi asks about his attributes, she reveals she has no idea. This is because he is not a mage but a sorcerer who does sorcery instead of magic spells. Mira explains that unlike mages who borrow power from spirits, sorcerers use the spirits by forging a pact with them. They explain how dangerous they can be in the future if they decide to use their powers for evil, however, and Taichi reveals he has no interest in politics or plundering nations as that will be a hassle. The explanation ends and Lemia kickstarts the training session by felling a tree with her fist. She infuses her fist with magic and asks Taichi to also attempt to materialize his magic power, but unfortunately, this proves rather difficult for him as he breathes heavily and complains about the ridiculous training routine. Elsewhere, Mira instructs Rin on how to create the image of a spell in her mind and how to say the incantations as a signal to activate the spell. She begins by visualizing the input of oxygen and heat and creates the spell on her first try. Mira is surprised, but Rin knows that she only managed due to her knowledge of chemistry. She resumes the training by visualizing the flame again, but this time she infuses it with gas and makes the flame stronger with a different color. Later, she finds Taichi lying exhausted on the grass and informs him that her training went extremely well. She encourages him to persevere, so he decides to give it another try. Only this time, a voice from inside his head helps instruct him and makes him successfully materialize his magic power. Rin is happy that he has finally made progress in his training, and he tells her about the voice that helped him through the process. Rin hopes it's not a ghost and he hasn't lost his mind, and they brush it off as a joke before heading inside to have lunch with their tutors. He feasts on the meal like a starving man, which makes Rin embarrassed by his lack of etiquette, although Lemia doesn't mind his behavior since eating a lot would help him replenish the mana he exhausted during training. She tells Mura to continue training Rin while she guides Taichi until he can enhance his physical performance by imbuing his entire body with his magic power. She explains that he'll have to burn a lot of magic power in the process, but that shouldn't be a hindrance since he has so much in reserve. Some days later, Taichi is made to practice his body enhancement against a fenwolf and easily defeats it, even though the beast is twice his size. After taking care of several fenwolves, he meets up with Rin, who uses different elements to defeat some carnivorous rabbits. Their next foe is an obsidian horse, their old nemesis, but this time they need no help from wandering adventurers to slay the beast. Lemia hosts them to a mini feast using the meat from the obsidian horse and tells them they can now become adventurers and will have to go back to Aspire the next day. They've been freeloading and relaxing and have forgotten that their original goal was always to become adventurers. Before they head out, she tells them about the Lost Ones, a term used to describe people who were summoned from an alternate world by mages. She explains that they do not know the identity of the sorcerer who summoned them from their world, but if they explore the continent, they might eventually come across the person. Taichi is especially positive that they can find the high-level sorcerer and thanks Rin for sticking with him all through their journey from Japan to this new world filled with magic. They return to Aspire the next day and begin their adventuring journey by taking on easy E-rank quests. They learn about the continent, the kingdom in which they reside, and some notable great cities that share a border with them. While they study, the inn receptionist called Almeida hands them a letter of summons from Gerard, the guild master, and at the guild, they are given a quest that entails investigating a visitor who frequents a bar and also obtaining information about his secret smuggling activities. Rin notices that the quest is for D-rank adventurers, but they are told they are allowed to take a quest one level above their current rank. Gerard informs them that the quest has been failed twice, and a third failure meant it be given to a C-rank adventurer. However, he's giving it to them since they are Lemia's apprentices. Successful completing the quest meant that they would immediately be promoted to D-rank, and this made them head out excitedly to unwind before the mission began at night. They head to a food stall, where they find out that prices have doubled as a result of constant attacks on wagons coming into the city. They figure out that the town's food and commodity shortage is related to their quest, and they make plans on how to approach the mission. They go to a bar and are welcomed by cold stares and silence from the old drunks who are wary of young adventurers. Taichi decides to piss them off more by ordering water in a bar, and this display makes the bartender take a liking to them. They explain to him how they need the hijacked goods circulating in the black market and offer to pay him a lot in exchange for his cooperation in securing the rare goods. Unfortunately, their huge bag of coins ends up attracting the attention of a group of drunkards who would do anything for some cash. After beating them up, the men are forced to confess to their dirty dealings and how they often bring the stolen goods into the city at night. They try to pry further, but the bartender sends them out for disrupting his business and beating up his customers. While heading home, they are tailed by a group of black-clad assassins who surround them and block their escape path. Taichi engages the first assassin in a sword fight and quickly retreats upon sensing their killing intent. They decide to capture them since they might have valuable information regarding their mission. Once Taichi activates his body enhancement, he easily defeats his opponent while Rin blows her away with a wind spell. It becomes clear that they are clearly outmatched, and this makes them leave their unconscious comrade behind while they make their escape using a signature smoke bomb distraction. They decide to hand the assassin over to the guild master, who locks her up in a secret underground prison. She wakes up scared and agitated, but Gerard is there to calm her by explaining that she doesn't need to kill herself or prepare to be killed by her fellow assassins, as that is their usual practice if they are captured. The next day, Mira pays them a visit at their lodging, and they hang out and explain their ordeal with the assassins, as well as the constant rise in food prices. They decide to form a party and thoroughly investigate the food shortage by heading over to a plantation that might be the next target for the bandits deep in the mountains. Mira informs them about the 500 gold coins reward for defeating the powerful mages protecting the bandits, and this makes them more determined to complete the quest. They arrive at the plantation and are welcomed by the workers in charge of the farm. They are given a tour around the farm, and while they explore the place, Rin senses a massive enemy approaching. She immediately tells the farmers to flee while they prepare to battle the giant orcs and ogres who have arrived to destroy the place. Mira swiftly slashes the smaller ogres one after the other, while Taichi goes to face the giant orc. While he tries to evade its massive swing, the farmers are scared that the giant might be too much for a mere human. However, he simply enhances his body and easily defeats the giant orc with a flying fist. After the battle, it becomes clear that someone was behind this sudden monster attack on the farm, and this makes them set a trap to catch the culprit in his tracks the next day. They continue their investigation the following day and quickly find some footprints and remnants of a campfire in the middle of the farm. Rin uses her staff to locate the thieves, who instantly draw out their swords, ready to fight their way out of the farm. The thieves are not accompanied by mages, and they quickly surrender and begin cursing at their absent mage when Taichi reveals that they are adventurers from the city sent to apprehend them. The group is left with Kasim, the farm's overseer, whom they begin to interrogate since he has exclusive knowledge about the orcs, which a simple farmer isn't supposed to know about. He confesses to being the mastermind behind the monster attack, the theft, and the process of hiring their service, all of which was to test their competence. His accomplice appears using an invisibility cloak that conceals a mage's presence and magic powers and introduces herself as Grammy. She offers to handle Mura and Rin while Kasim battles Taichi alone, and as they fight, she explains to them that although she is an assassin, rather than using sneaky methods, she prefers to enjoy the pleasure of an intense battle. While Mira confronts her with a sword, Rin offers support with her usual fire attacks, which are surprisingly countered with a water spell. She uses a wind spell to create a smoke screen, so that when Grammy counters it, she is faced with a simultaneous earth and water attack. 936. She still manages to stop a dual element attack and also matches Mira's magically enhanced attacks. The battle-obsessed assassin knocks out Mira and turns her attention on Rin, whose spells have been proving inefficient throughout the battle. At the other end, Kasim summons a massive frost elemental to battle Taichi, who is fully confident in himself. When he attacks the beast, he doesn't make contact with its physical body, mainly because, rather than a physical attack, an elemental can only be harmed by a magic spell. He continues to attack in vain and slowly depletes his stamina while the beast shoots out several ice pillars from its mouth. Kasim decides to up his game by feeding his frost elemental a ball of evil magical energy, which makes it evolve into an incredibly massive red elemental that sends Taichi flying despite his full-body physical enhancement. Taichi begins to bleed after taking a single blow from the massive beast, but when Kasim informs him he plans to take his companions hostage and force him to work as a subordinate, Taichi loses his cool. Meanwhile, Mura and Rin decide to stop messing around and show off their full strength against the battle maniac. She attacks using 2 spell swords, and when Grammy blocks the first slash, she stabs her with the second lightning sword. Grammy finds herself caught in the center of an explosion and comes out standing, wanting to continue the battle. However, Myra deals the finishing blow by enveloping her sword with hot red flames and slashing her. Taichi puts on a good show, but it isn't enough to defeat the powerful red elemental. In the end, the duo are forced to submit to Kasim, while Taichi curses his weakness and inability to protect himself or his companions despite being a sorcerer. He falls unconscious, and in a dream, the wind spirit called Ariel informs him that she'll lend him her powers only once since they haven't officially forged a pact yet. He raises himself back up thanks to the surging wind around him, and this makes Kasim order his beast to finish him off. Taichi takes a direct hit from the beast and comes out unscathed, laughing at how his newfound power felt like a cheat. The red elemental attacks again, but this time he wipes the beast and its attack from the face of the earth with a single move. His borrowed power begins to fade, and even when his injuries become more severe, he holds out and drives away the enemies with one last attack. He falls unconscious after depleting every ounce of magic power in his body and wakes up a week later in Limia's cottage. He tells her about the red elementals that pushed him to the brink of death and also about Ariel. who lent him her powers, and the mention of the wind spirit shocks Lemia, who explains that spirits are rare beings higher than dragons and invisible to human eyes, and the fact that he can hear and see her means he is a summoner. He goes back to Aspire to meet up with his comrades who had already left the inn before he came back. He wanders around town and finds some men harassing a green-haired beauty. He steps in to protect her from the men, who quickly scram after a few exchanges. The girl introduces herself as Anastasia, the former assassin he helped capture on the night of his first quest, who now works for the city's guild. They team up to continue the investigation of the stolen goods and succeed in locating their base of operations that same day. They stealthily defeat the guards stationed outside and the ones guarding the most important room in the building. They fight their way into the room, and here they find a letter addressed to Taichi. While unwinding in town, there's a commotion about the constant increase in food prices every day. The situation just keeps getting worse, and this makes the girls angry that they haven't been able to resolve the issue yet. They notice that they are being followed, and shortly after, they are boldly ambushed in the market despite how busy the place is. Mira instructs the townsfolk to head to safety while she and Rin engage the assassin in a 2 versus 1 situation. They prepare to finish off the assassin, but they are attacked with a powerful explosive magic by a mage from a distance, making Rin to quickly switch to defense mode. The battle takes a turn on its head as they become disadvantaged and are forced to handle 5 enemies, including Grammy, who snuck close to them by using her invisibility cloak. She knocks out Mura and orders her subordinates to stall Rin long enough for her to successfully escape with Mura. The letter informs them of a horde of crimson goblins lurking beneath the town of Aspire, and as they head into the tunnels to further investigate, they find some monster remains in a secret doorway. Anastasia picks to lock herself in case there's a trap, and watching her makes him suggest she take up a normal way of living away from the fighting. By the time Rin defeats the remaining assassins stalling her, Grammy shows up and shows her the location of the tower where Myra is being held captive. She explains that she doesn't like the sneaky approach to battle and wants a rematch with them another time. Rin arrives hastily and angrily at the tower where Myra is held hostage and being prepped to become a sacrifice. She immobilizes the mages by freezing their feet and goes to deactivate the magic circle draining her friend. After saving her, Kasim's boss named Cardinal Lodra, a church executive and the mastermind behind the previous attacks, shows up and informs them about the 3,000 goblins preparing to attack the city at dawn. A golem suddenly springs up on Anastasia, but Taichi is there to protect her. He blocks its attack and pounds it with his fist until all that's left of it is only rocks with no magic core, a situation he finds extremely weird. He soon finds out that the reason for the abnormality of the golem is the work of the twins Milo and Melo, who are capable of creating monsters with their specialty earth magic. They inform him that they're responsible for waking up the goblins and instructing them to kill and eat people using a special crystal. However evil they act, Taichi still wants to protect the twins, who are just kids being manipulated. Unfortunately, when they awaken the goblins enhanced by the Crimson Pact just like the Frost Elemental, Taichi charges at them alone. During the battle, the twins lose their crystal, and as a result, they are attacked by the monsters they are supposed to be controlling. He saves them in time and also manages to assist Anastasia, who is having a difficult time fighting effectively in her outfit. The next morning, Rin, Mura, Gerard, and Lemia lead the defense against the goblin invasion. Rin uses a wide range of earth magic to create a massive pit and follows up the attack with a boiling water spell. Next, she creates a heated metal sphere, places it into the water-filled pit, and together, the combination causes a massive steam explosion. Her attack allows the adventurers to charge in while the goblins are confused and in disarray, and although Lemia's presence on the battlefield inspires everyone, the enemy also deploys monsters enhanced by the Crimson Pact. They continue to battle a new wave of enhanced monsters and struggle to keep up with their superior numbers without using up all their magic powers. They manage to cut down the numbers until there are only a few dozen remaining alongside 3 Red Commander Ogres, the strongest monsters they've ever encountered. Lemia prepares to launch a powerful spell while they keep the monsters away from her so that she has enough time to finish her incantation. Taichi arrives at the command center with Anastasia and the twins and is given a rundown on the situation on the battlefield. They decide to head to the battlefield to support the girls, who are undoubtedly facing a strong opponent, but Anastasia stays behind since her assassination style of combat isn't suited for the front lines. Lemia's spell clears out the remaining low-level monsters, and they are left with the 3 giant ogres. They all use what's left of their magic power in hopes of ending the battle quickly, but their effort isn't enough to defeat the ogres, who surprisingly come out unscathed. It moves to finish off Rin, who has exhausted her magic power, and before she's crushed by its fist, Taichi shows up to save her. To engage the giant monstrosity in a strength contest and even boost his physical enhancement to the maximum level just to be safe. He makes the monster vulnerable by slamming it flat on the floor, and he deals the final blow with a charged punch from above. Afterward, apologizes for coming late and tells them about the horde of goblins he had to eliminate underneath the town. He hands the twins over to Lemia and informs her of their incredible capabilities despite how small they look, and heads back to continue the battle with the Red Ogres. By this time, more monsters arrive and the group is forced to hold them off with the little magic powers they have left. The twins help out using their earth magic, and together, their teamwork helps them hold out long enough for Taichi to defeat the Commander Ogres. Although it's a 3-on-1 situation, he fights them on equal footing, evading their attacks and damaging them with powerful blows thanks to his enhancement. He stumps them one after the other, and before he can finish them off, the ground begins to rumble, and the ogres are killed by a mysterious dragon who emerges from deep within the earth. Its arrival causes the earth to quake, and when the 2-headed dragon roars, its flames illuminates the sky across the land and instills fear in everyone on the battlefield. Taichi thinks their intense battle above ground was responsible for waking up the dragon, but Limia tells him that they never interfere with human affairs no matter the situation. Against Rin's wishes, he decides to engage the overwhelming and intimidating beast while instructing the others to evacuate the city. He explains to her that her presence is more of a weakness to him, since he would easily shield her with his body if her life is in danger, and begs her not to come. But Rin reminds him of their promise to always stay together and confront any foe as a team regardless of the dangers involved. She promises not to get in his way and stays behind to support him from a distance. He approaches the dragon, and finally seeing it up close, he tries to contact Ariel as he could use all the help he can get, and when there's no response from her, he charges at the beast with a powerful punch. The exchange creates a shockwave, but does no damage to the beast, and it retaliates with a shower of flames. He tries to evade them, but instead he is caught by the classic dragon tail swing and sent flying. It also sends a threatening attack towards Rin, telling her not to move an inch or interfere with the battle. Taichi is seriously injured as a result of the last attack, and he notices that the dragon held back against him, and that is the only reason why he is still alive. At the same time, Anastasia shows up hypnotized and has no idea how she got to the battlefield. Her arrival distracts him from the dragon, who has already charged an attack to fry them both as punishment for ignoring his presence. She shields him from the flames and ends up suffering a fatal injury to her abdomen. In her last moments, her life flashes before her eyes, and as she bleeds to death, she thanks Taichi for the peaceful and fun memories she had thanks to him. He becomes enraged, bitter, and sad that he failed to protect her even when he promised to, and this raging emotion triggers a connection with Ariel, who apologizes for not helping out early. She explains that there's a rule that restricts spirits from using their powers except when commanded by a summoner, and the only exception is when the summoner's life is in danger. Rather than himself, he doesn't blame anyone for Anastasia's death because he was full of himself and scared to utilize his overwhelming power that could easily go out of control. He and Ariel forge a pact, and he becomes capable of accessing her powers, which envelopes him in a stream of magical energy. He asks the dragon why he is interfering with a human war and what it would take to make him retreat, and it tells him to display the extent of his powers. It takes to the sky and combines both flames from its two heads at the same time, while Taichi counters it with a wind magic of the same magnitude. He goes all out and pushes the dragon back until its flames are extinguished, and it falls down satisfied with Taichi's effort. It tells him that the entire battle was planned by an individual who begged it to measure his strength, as he would be vital to the fate of the nation in the near future. After the battle, the city of Aspire slowly gets back on its feet, and food prices and town activities slowly return to normal. Back at the cottage, Taichi manifests Ariel for the whole group to see and admire before they are interrupted by a messenger of the royal family, Alcina Norman, who arrives and invites them to the Wenifix, the kingdom's capital, at the request of the king. In the carriage, she explains that the king planned to dispatch the nation's magicians to help neighboring countries, while his brother opposes the idea since it will reveal their mage practices and weaken their dominance. As a result, the king's younger brother, Duke Dortisham, and his faction started a revolt that might lead to a civil war. They arrive at the capital and are shocked to find it looking like a ghost town. Everyone is wary of them, and Alcina is even attacked by an assassin. Taichi saves her from the assassination attempt, and they head into the royal hall filled with high-ranking dignitaries. The king arrives and introduces himself as Gilmore, but before he can say another word, Limia cuts him short and demands that he explain why they were summoned. The nobles are dismissed, and she proposes a deal with the king. In return for their help in the coming war, he must tell them who is responsible for summoning Taichi and Rin from their world. He takes responsibility and apologizes for his actions. However, Taichi is infuriated that the reason he robbed them of their normal and peaceful lives was because he wanted them to help him kill his enemies. Later that day, Alcina introduces them to Princess Charlotte, the one actually responsible for their summoning. She explains that the summoning ritual was only meant for Taichi, and when the ritual was infiltrated by an assassin, her magic power went berserk and also transported Rin. They ask her how they can return to their world, and she begins to sob and reveals that the summoning ritual cannot be reversed once it is done. She apologizes and begs them to help her suppress the rebellion, and afterward, she will find any means possible to send them back to their world. Taichi is summoned to participate in a mock battle with General Sumela, the supreme commander of the army, who wants to gauge his strength for herself. She immediately attacks him with her sword, and Taichi is forced to defend against her brutality and killing intent. He wants to summon Ariel, but is hesitant as he might end up killing the general. She continues to taunt him, and he goes on the attack using his physical enhancement skill. Their next clash shatters their blades, and they continue the battle by putting their hand-to-hand combat abilities to the test. This time, he overpowers her, slamming her to the ground and making her yield in front of the king and other notable spectators. She acknowledges his strength and offers to become his wife or mistress, so long as he helps her give birth to powerful kids who will be as strong as he is. The next day, the king thanks them for their efforts in the previous battle and rewards them with magic tools from the royal treasury. They each take a piece that suits them perfectly. Rin fancies a new magic staff, while Taichi is captivated by a rare katana that reminds him of his days as an otaku. They tell them the katana was made in the earthen continent, but the soldiers don't have high opinions of it as it's very thin and might break easily. At the training ground, Limia tests out her new ring while General Sumela begs Taichi for a duel with his new katana. He escapes his obsessive wife-to-be and heads into town, where he is praised and thanked by the people for protecting the town during the battle with the rebel army. In an alley, he encounters Kasim, who now has only an arm after he blasted off in a feat of rage during their battle at the plantation. As revenge for taking his arm, he challenges Taichi to a duel, which he cannot reject unless every well in the kingdom is poisoned. Taichi hesitantly agrees to his condition, and they head to an isolated location where he reveals an evil artifact meant to make his magic powers as strong as Taichi's. Ariel warns him about the artifact, but he must fight Kasim, who thinks he is a genius who didn't work hard enough to become so powerful. The artifact is activated, and it instantly limits Taichi's magic powers and brings them down to Cassie's level. They begin the duel, and Kasim can keep up with Taichi, whose wind magic isn't as strong as it usually is. Kasim switches to a constant barrage of ice and water magic, and Taichi evades them and also disarms him. They continue their exchange, with both parties dealing significant damage to each other, ultimately leading to a stalemate. Kasim gets ready for an ultimate attack while Taichi stands defenseless since he has already used up most of his magic powers. He recalls Rin's instructions, and when Kasim attacks, he imbues his katana with magic, slices through his water ball, and defeats him. Kasim admits defeat and tells him to destroy the artifact and restore his magic powers, but the artifact manifests a shadow monster that attacks him. With no energy to fight back, he is saved by Grammy, who also destroys the artifact with her sword. However, the monster doesn't disappear and continues to enlarge, and since Taichi has gotten his powers back, he uses a lightning attack to blast the monster away, leaving no remnant behind. The next day, Duke Dorgesheim assembles his troops and hires mercenaries to handle Lemia and her overpowered pupils. King Gilmar also gives an inspiring speech that motivates everyone and makes them charge into the battlefield, ready to give their all for their nation. Both Rin and Lemia run riot with their new magic tools, while Taichi bypasses the army formation and heads directly to the enemy's command center. Rin encounters a female mercenary who uses a large axe and introduces herself as an A-rank adventurer called Suzora. She gives the vibe of a battle maniac like Grammy, and this makes her wary of her. 17-7. This is her first solo battle with a strong opponent, and this makes her less confident in her attacks. Suzora maneuvers mid-air and sends a blaze wave her way. She is burned by the attack, but retaliates with a successive ice and flame spell that catches Suzora off guard. The injury only makes her more hyped to continue the battle. Unfortunately, they are interrupted by zombies and made to work together. Taichi defeats the Duke's guards and easily makes it into his tent. He, along with Ariel, proposes a peaceful resolution with the Duke and promises to spare his life if he puts an end to this senseless bloodshed caused by a minor conflict of interest. The Duke begins to entertain the thought of a peaceful resolution, but his pride doesn't let him stop the war. He asks Taichi why he doesn't become king, since he has so much magical power, and he responds by explaining how stressful and demanding ruling will be for someone like him who enjoys lazing around and doing what he likes. While the Duke explains his passion and willingness to sacrifice whatever he has to for his nation, his right-hand man, Inimicus, shrouds himself in a malevolent aura and controls the fallen and injured soldiers on the battlefield who are now his zombies. The zombies attack fighters from both sides, and Inimicus reveals how he used the Duke's jealousy to instigate a rebellion and start a war under the orders of his true master. She ordered him to use a spell called the Bloody Rhapsody and turn weak soldiers into mindless zombies who will continue to run berserk even when their flesh roots. When they are stabbed or blown away, the zombies rise up and continue to surround their prey. Suzora and Rin team up to battle the zombies despite being severely injured from their intense battle. The zombies continue to multiply, leaving only the strongest warriors unaffected, and even with Taichi's giant tornado blowing them apart, they just stand up, not caring for their injuries and driven solely by rage and the thirst for blood. The Duke tells Taichi that the mysterious mastermind lent Inimicus part of her magic powers to enable him to cast the spell and push him to his limits. The Duke blames himself for bringing destruction to the nation he only wanted to save and begs Taichi to intervene in the kingdom's last stand against the zombies. To save his friends and allies who are giving it their all against the undead army, Taichi prepares to go all out even if it drains his life force in the process. Before he strikes, Ariel stops him by freezing time and space and asks for his forgiveness for lying to him. She reveals that she has been denying him access to her true powers because he might misuse them or go berserk, and she bids him farewell and promises to reciprocate his kindness by granting him access to her true powers as a higher spirit. She disappears into shiny particles and undoes the time freeze, which allows him to reunite with Rin, who has been greatly injured. He calls out the name Sylphid, and the ethereal energy shatters the evil magic circle, returns the soldiers back to normal, and summons Ariel in her true form from the skies. She descends from the sky as the Queen of Spirits and one of the grand spirits in the world, and to end the battle, they confront Inimicus, who is transformed into a powerful monster with wings and taken to the sky. Taichi joins him in the sky, and as they fight, he asks for the identity of his master. He is told that he is very important, and his master, a divine being, orchestrated his summons and has been using everyone in his life as pawns to make him her ultimate weapon. The thought of being a puppet infuriates him, so he lets loose on Inimicus, punching him in anger for taking countless lives in the name of a shady being who won't even do her dirty work herself. In the end, he defeats Inimicus without giving him the chance to land a single punch, and when he goes to land the killing blow, he thinks he is incapable of taking the life. However, Taichi has already accepted the responsibility of his overwhelming powers and lands the killing blow by using a lightning attack that destroys his physical form. This brings an end to the war, and Taichi collapses only to wake up several days later in the palace. Peace returns to the land, and Taichi is declared the nation's hero for playing a major part in ending the civil war. Duke Dorgesheim is secretly executed for his actions, and Taichi and his companions head back to Aspire in a carriage to continue their lives.